Hello, hello,
Hello.
beautiful souls. Watching this podcast, welcome to another episode on the podcast Heal, Develop, and Expand from the series From Lost Through Thriving, where we talk with survivors of abuse and generational trauma. And we basically see what's their story and how did they go from deep pain into expansion from the soul and consciousness. Today we got a special guest, Katoya. Hello.
Hi.
Hey. So tell us, what's your story? How did it all started?
So I basically my first situation with abuse. I was 18, got married very young. And I would say it first started off with some like a slap. And then we went to more extreme measures, black eyes, broken ribs, broken capillaries in my neck. Then a lot of mental abuse, being talked to until he was delirious pretty much for hours throughout the night. Just speaking about how my family was and how I was. And finally, I left with 5 children and one in my belly. And how it ended is that I let him have the children for the weekend and he left the state with them. We did live in a state where there is no parental kidnapping. Went through maybe about 2 or 3 years of trying to fight that situation. And when I thought that we had came up with a conclusion is when he actually went to court. I didn't know. And so he now has custody of my children. He was, of course, in a better financial situation than me. I was pretty much a housewife throughout that time with some odd jobs here and there, but pretty much a housewife. And so, yeah, that's my story. And from there, I've had another situation which never got physical per se with me, just some property damage. And basically had to learn a lot about loving myself and boundaries and looking out for me. It was a hard lesson, nothing that I would ever want to go through again, but happy that I did because I'm happy I am where I am today.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. I'm so happy you just went out from them and just living your life right now.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
interested in Yeah, I'm interested in many survivors, when we realize that something is wrong with the way that we're living. Let's say in this example, the abusive toxic person. So what would you say was your breakthrough, for example? Like what actually made you think like, hey, I'm not going to live like this forever, and now it's time to actually start changing things?
So my eldest daughter was 10 at the time, and I was in the kitchen cooking, and she was doing her homework at the table, and she says to me, she says, Mama, do you think that God gives us lessons to see how much we love people? And I was like, yeah, why? Do you think God is giving me a lesson? And she was like, yes. And I was like, for what? To see how much I love your dad? And she was like, no, to see how much you love yourself. And it was just I just broke down crying. I went to the bathroom and just cried because at that point I was like, my 10-year-old at this point is wiser than I am. And she's just seeing this so clearly, So for me, I was just like, okay, I have to go. Like, this is not going to work.
Yeah. And it's so beautiful, like when children, or younger people than us has so much wisdom. So it's
Yes,
such a beautiful experience that you learn from it.
yes.
Mm-hmm. And fast forward, how are you doing today? Like, would you say you learned some gifts, so you developed some gifts
Oh,
from this experience, or was it all negative?
yes, nothing but gifts. Obviously, there is a sore feelings for not being able to have my children every day. I have 6 girls at that. So the youngest one was not even a year old when he took her. But I have learned, one, the power of love, because my children and I are so close, even with the distance that was not able to break the bond. It's been strengthened. I did begin to tap into some, because at that point, when you go through things like that, there's nothing left to turn to but God. But spirituality is like everything crumbles around you. And so I have tapped into some intuitive gifts. I've been able to help other people through those gifts. And most of all, it's just it's one thing for people to say, yeah, I love myself, I have confidence, but this has taken me on such a journey of really understanding what that means, what it really means to love yourself, what it really means to have boundaries. And it just brought up so many things from childhood and feeling less than and not being able to express yourself, and being a daddyless daughter, so to speak. I had a stepdad, but my natural father wasn't there. And the balance that I have now, the acceptance of going with the flow, the way I value myself, the way I'm not afraid to stand up for myself, even if that means being outcasted in the moment. It's amazing. It's like a whole nother life, it's like a whole nother existence completely. So nothing but growth from it. And I think that's also a choice, to finally decide not to sit in it, not to ruminate, and not to keep pointing the finger outside of myself. What they did, what was done to me was wrong. It was unjust. But I'm learning so many things about life. It's truly not fair. It takes that saying to a whole different level to me. But it was up to me to really push through it and grow through it. And so I found my strength. Like I said, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't want to go through it again, but I wouldn't want to change it for anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so vulnerable, so strong, the resilience we get from these experiences and how much we learn. It's such an important lesson. I just had a question. Like, you mentioned you were a daughter, like, without a father. So, I deep dive into, the work of generational trauma and how growing without a proper, example of a father or a mother can impact us on our future relationships with people, especially romantic relationships. So would you say, in your perspective, would you say that growing without, a father or a proper example, let's say, of a father impacted you to get into that relationship?
Absolutely. So my parents split up when I was about 6 years old, and they went to a court date. And this is probably something that, my mom shouldn't have shared, but I'm not sure if I overheard it or she told me. I think I overheard it. My father went into the courtroom and was like, she can have them, and gave up his rights to us. And then, and I want to say, I have a stepdad, he was great, but he still couldn't fill that void of that situation. So my dad says to the judge, like, she can have them. And I think from that point on, I was just really affected by feeling maybe abandoned, maybe not good enough, maybe in the way. And so I always found myself in positions, not even just romantic relationships, just any relationship, where I was constantly trying to prove that I was worthy, showing everything that I can do, being self-sacrificial, to make sure that people understood that I could be an asset in their lives, so that they wouldn't want to discard me. Fast forward to a grown woman, I've gained a relationship with my dad. And to see the similarities between him and the men that I date is like super scary. It's like, oh my God, like that is my dad. But
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely affected it, because you I guess as a child, you just don't understand why you have such a natural, strong love for this person. And it's just so easy for them to walk away from you and live their lives every day as if you don't even exist. And so it definitely put me in a position of constantly needing to prove myself and prove myself worthy of people's presence. Just that I wasn't asking for anything else but their presence. They didn't need to do anything. I would do everything. just be present for me. So it really caused me to cut myself short in a lot of areas, for sure.
Yeah, this is something I really relate to as well, especially with my father. I think like as women, it happens too with men and their women partners. But as women here, we have like a very emotionally unavailable father, and because we are not made sure and we're not taught on how to validate ourselves just the way we are, so we just keep choosing partners that in a way because it's familiar.
Yes.
So we are happy that they are just there, but they're not really there, like emotionally speaking, and we just need to keep doing these things how we were doing it as daughters, like when we are younger. So yeah,
Yes.
there's
It's just a
there's many
cycle.
similarities. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mhm.
Exactly. And would you say like now you are doing in a much better place, with talking about self-love and self-acceptance, radical self-acceptance?
Yes, I'm in a much better place. The part that people tend to leave out of the self-love and self-acceptance, it can get so lonely sometimes, when you actually have standards and you actually accept yourself and are willing to stand up for yourself and not just accept anything that anyone wants to do to you. It can get lonely sometimes because or people can insult you, you're being like this, you're being like that, and it's painful sometimes too, because I've already formed bonds with people when I was in my people pleasing stage, and so to have to realize that these people were in my life more for benefit than real authentic love, or for who I am as opposed to what I was offering, it can get painful. But again, I wouldn't trade where I am for anything. Every day that I wake up, I feel so strong, and I feel so much gratitude for my experiences, and just for being in a place where I feel like I can see clearly, and at a place of peace, at a place of peace.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree so much. And especially it's nice that you mentioned, especially for any survivors that might be listening to this right now. But it's so crucial to remind yourself that even if you feel lonely, which is common, because
Yeah.
you are just coming out of this trauma bond and you felt like this is something that happened to me as well. I felt lonely in my own family, in my own narcissistic family, but I wasn't alone because I was always accompanied and surrounded by people, even if they were mistreating me. But then I just went out and I was both lonely because I didn't heal my empty void inside myself, like self-love, and I was alone as well. So that's really important.
Yes. Yes. And for them, it's natural, and it's okay. I would rather be alone and lonely than have a bunch of people around me and still feel lonely. And it's not all the time, it's not like depressed lonely. It's just like, oh, sometimes I wish I could just connect with someone who is authentic, and who is at a place where they're self-accepting. And I learned that a lot of people around me, I no longer feel victimized to a certain point, because I don't villainize them. A lot of people are walking around not accepting themselves and not really loving themselves, which is why they're able to treat other people with such malice, because of the inner things that are going on with them. They don't treat themselves good. So it's like learning that too. Like you don't even treat yourself good. So I can't expect but so much from you, which is why I need to distance myself from you, because you do you wrong. So you're gonna do me
Yeah,
wrong. Mm-hmm.
exactly. The support systems, like but this usually happens also when you're spiritual awakening, when you have the spiritual awakening, like you are first in your people pleasing phase, and then you just have this realization, this breakthrough, And also, I think that the narcissist or any just abusive person has a lot to do with this. So you just wake up and you're like, okay, I'm going to distance myself from this and this and this. And these people, they're going to get triggered because they are used to getting things from you, to just using you, stepping on you, and just doing anything. And then you're just, okay, boundaries. So it's important to
Yes,
remember that people are going to get triggered.
very much so. Very much so. And call you all type, you're selfish and you're nasty and you have an attitude. And, I've even had some people tell me, oh, you need to heal whatever trauma. It's like, this is the healing. I'm sorry that it doesn't work for you, but this is the healing right here.
Yeah. So yeah, and if people, they just get triggered, they are not your people. Like even if they're like super, forcing you and staying with you, this is something off, this is a red flag, you know. And talking about red flags, now that you can easily just observe the past, would you say like there's some specific signs or red flags that you can tell survivors to watch out for when they are in the beginning of a relationship, for example?
Absolutely. So I would say to definitely look at the way that they treat other people. Don't consider yourself the exception just because they're being kind to you in the moment. And I mean everyone from their mothers to a waiter to a homeless person. Be very mindful about what their character is. I would say the hot and cold energy, where we usually take that as, I know as someone that was living in a lot of trauma, we take hot and cold and we run after it. Now we want that person. So that type of emotional manipulation. Also, be mindful of their old situations and relationships. Not to say that people can't change, but if you have someone constantly talking about situations in their lives and they're never wrong, they're always the victim in the situation and harsh things happen. And it's just like, everybody did something to me, I didn't do anything wrong. Pay attention to that as well. Pay attention to how someone is when you tell them no. I make a habit of saying no pretty early on to see how someone is going to react to that, whether they're going to respect my boundaries or whether they're going to throw a mantrum or a tantrum. So I would say those things as well. And this last one, he went from complimenting me, I mean, about the simplest things, like, oh, I love the way you drive. Like, you drive so well. Till all of a sudden he was like, did you buy your license? So pay attention to that. People trying to alter your confidence or make you question yourself. And then lastly, I just said this to someone the other day. People that say things that make no sense, as long as it helps their agenda or helps their point. It's like, oh, you have on a blue shirt. It's like, this is not a blue shirt. This is a gray shirt. And it's like, no, it's blue. And these are things that we can just go by like, you're crazy. Like, but no, this person is literally step by step trying to alter your perception of reality. And that is so important in abusive situations. It's necessary for them to alter your logistics and your perception so that it starts off like that to make you think you're crazy. Now you're second guessing things that's like, really is just 1 + 1 = 2. So, have your eye open, I would say, for those things for sure.
Yeah, really eye-opening points. Super important. The gaslighting, and I like this one that you mentioned. That first they start like, "Oh, you're so beautiful. You dress so well. You're amazing. You're the best thing ever." And then they start evaluating you. Like the first thing is love bombing, and then they start like, "Oh, what are you doing? You're so crazy. You're overreacting. What's
Yes.
wrong with you?"
Yes. It's like,
Like
wait,
we
what?
really should take care of that.
And also, the biggest one, I would say, pay attention to how you feel around someone. At my age now, I'm old enough to know that the butterflies in the stomach is actually anxiety, is actually your spirit warning you that something is wrong. So you don't have to wait for someone to actually do something to validate how you feel. If you feel it, trust it, and just know that God, source, whoever, your ancestors, whoever is not going to trick you. The universe doesn't seek to trick you. So it's not like, oh man, I was just trying to see if you were going to take a chance anyway, because that actually is your husband or that actually is your wife. No. If you don't feel safe, if your spirit does not feel settled and secure around someone, and you're like, it's just something I can't put my finger on, you do not have to stick around to see what that something is. Just go ahead and move it along. It'll save you so much trauma and so much pain going forward. Really trust yourself and how you feel, because how you feel is important.
Yeah, indeed. Agreed. And also the butterflies in the stomach. Like, we really just think during when we are teenagers, like, oh my God, I'm so in love. But then we completely ignore the signs. Yeah.
Yes.
And yeah, like listening to your body is super important point. Like, I can stress this enough. We, like, especially as survivors, we just go through abuse, we just tend to ignore, the red flags, and then we also ignore what our body is telling us. Like,
Yes.
this is something that really resonates with me, and I'm sure that any survivor that is listening to this right now. And yeah, and talking with to our body and listening to our signs, let's just talk about intuition a little bit more, like, the feeling, not also the body, but the feeling on, the lessons and the wisdom that you learn from abuse. Would you say that you also, it helped you to develop, your psychic gifts? And if so, what are those? Like, what are, the intuition or whatever you're using, in your daily life to help yourself and others?
Well, I am a reader. I read cards. I just learned a medium. But I can basically, I can smell someone's energy from a mile away. I don't care. It doesn't have to be just romantic. It can just be anything. And like, I'm just still, I would say I'm about 95% there of really trusting myself, because sometimes I'll know things that it's just like, you have to be making that up. Like, you cannot possibly just know that about a person. And then it'll be validated and confirmed. It's like, oh my God, I really didn't know that. Like, I can't believe I really knew that. So I have a few women, I would say 3 women who I've been reading for about 3 years going. And I see the person before they come. I tell them, like, listen, da 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 da. This is da 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 da. But at the same time, having respect for the process of life, right? So yes, I do have intuition. Yes, I can read people a mile away. Yes, but I'm still human. My clients are still human, and there are still things that we have to go through, because it's life. You have to learn. Everybody touch something hot in order to find out that it'll burn you, or touch something sharp to realize that it was going to cut you. It's life. We have to go through it. So my intuitive abilities are through the roof. My mediumship is through the roof. Like I said, I read cards. I have a TikTok page where I, pretty much just share what my journey has been through learning about numerology and orishas and birth charts and galactic signatures, and culminating all those things together, and just wanting people to take whatever it is that they can from that and apply it to their lives, and being able to just reach their highest potential. So intuitive levels are through the roof. And I'm sometimes really just shocked. Really just shocked at it. But I'm so happy with it as well. I'm ecstatic about it.
That's so beautiful that you're doing this. And aside from TikTok, do you have any other socials?
No, TikTok, and I do have a YouTube page, but I'm not much active on it. I think I will start posting some pick of cards on there soon. That seems pretty fun. But TikTok is where I mainly do reaching out. And I do have a Facebook page, but again, I just take the information from TikTok and post it on the Facebook page.
That's great. That's great. I think like any survivor that might be interested in your tarot reading offerings, or dreams, or just intuitive guidance, we really love to check your page. So we will include it down below in the video description.
Yes, I would love to have you. Love, love, love to have you. And if you do get on the page, go into my inbox and let me know where you're coming from, and I will be happy to offer you a free session for any abuse survivors. Definitely.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Yes.
just coming back from, the survivors, you're most welcome to check out her TikTok and just check out what she's doing and follow her, support her, show her much love. Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And just talking about survivors, like I think to end this episode in a good way for you to know that you are, supported and heard. So if you would, see your younger self, or if you see a younger self of anyone who's listening yourself this podcast right now, this episode, and they're going through abuse, what would you tell them, like in a sentence or maybe more?
Oh my God.
Exactly.
I would just say to you, you are beautiful, you are worthy, and you are here for a reason. And the reason is not to be anyone's footstool. You cannot save anyone but yourself. And the faster you get out of a situation where you're not being valued is the moment that you will really begin to live. That is not living. That is not living. That is not life. And you were not put here to validate anyone else, especially someone who doesn't value you. So you are beautiful, you are loved, and please, any support that you need, definitely for that, reach out. Doesn't have to be tarot card reading. It could just be someone to talk to. Doesn't matter. I will definitely be here to give that support, because to me, you're important. If you went through anything like this, the strength that you have and the story that you have to tell is needed. So we need you, and we need you to be in a good spot. So come on up out of there.
Exactly. Like we live in a society that we're just feeling so broken, and we need like more healers. We need more authentic people. And I think that even though it's painful, but it's also beautiful that from pain we're able to heal and we're able to help others. It's such a
Yes.
beautiful message. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you so much for having us and
Thank
for
you.
listening to this beautiful episode. Thank you so much, Katoy. You're so happy.
So are you. Thank you for
Okay.
coming up with this.
Yeah. Okay, so don't forget, just a reminder that if you want to check her socials, they will be down below the video description. And if you're listening to any, podcast platform, Spotify or Apple or Google or whatever, it will be also in the video, in the audio description. So you can check her out. Okay, so have a beautiful day, everyone, and see you in the next episode. Bye.